In the mid-1800s, Lewis Carroll spent a great deal of time at the estate of his esteemed friend Henry Liddell, the then dean of Oxford University, the very same school where Carroll taught. Carroll was a mentor and a tutor for the children of the Liddell family, Edith, Alice, and Lorena. He would give the little girls lessons and take care of them while their parents were away. He treasured them, very much so, especially Alice. He had a very close relationship with the Liddell sisters. Maybe a little too close. After some time, the dean felt the relationship to be an unwelcome one. And so, Lewis Carroll stopped being the children's tutor and parted ways with the Liddell sisters. Time passed, and many years later, Carroll received a letter. It was from his dear Alice. She was inviting him to a Christmas party that was to be held soon. When the date arrived, Carroll was overjoyed. He entered the hall where the party was being held, and there he saw her. Alice. At least Alice as an old woman, now married, named Alice Hargreaves. This was not Alice, not the little girl he knew. He knew deep down that Alice had grown up and gotten married, but the shock of seeing her was too much, and he fled the party. Filled with sorrow, Carroll prayed to any god listening to give him back his Alice, the little girl Alice he had once known. A god answered. The sky turned red, and the earth was caught in a calamity. The crawling one had heeded Carroll's plight, and so absorbed him into his existence. Sometime later, Carroll finds himself at a tea party with Alice and a butler rabbit they call Prayer Master. But this Alice was not the same Alice Liddell or even Hargreaves that Carroll knew. This was the Crawling One, an outer god in human form, taking up the role of Alice. The more time the Crawling One spent masquerading as Alice, the more human emotions would emerge inside of her. Many pleasant days were spent inside this enchanting garden. Carroll and Alice grew ever closer, and everything seemed like a dream. However, the ever-growing affection between Carroll and Alice was noticed by Prayer Master, and resentment slowly filled his heart and made a jealous wish. Furthermore, something in the little girl stirred, another wish that would later bring her much sorrow. Alice wanted the tea party to end. If only someone would come to end it, she thought. And unfortunately for Alice, Carroll, and the Prayer Master, her wish came true. A terrible outsider was let into this wonderland. She would stop the tea party and come to cause much suffering to Alice and her friends. The outsider had a penchant for creation. When she read Carroll's stories, she fell in love with them. She fell in love so much so that she wanted more stories, and more humans that wrote them. She donned the name Mary Sue, and the same way Carroll had come into this world, other authors were brought in as well. 8 authors, among which included Lewis Carroll, Christian Andersen, and presumably H.P. Lovecraft and the Brothers Grimm. Mary Sue took 8 souls and amalgamated them into a single being and trifled with the creation on top of it. And so, Grimm was created, the protagonist of the Black Soul series. But he was not the only creation that Mary Sue worked on. A new world, a new garden, was also created based upon the many stories of the authors Mary Sue had previously used. She created forests and deserts and ice plains, as well as their inhabitants, all based on the stories she was so in love with, but all twisted in horrible ways that we have yet to see. And so, the stage has been set for the beginning of our beloved game, Black Souls. Grimm is in a grand library, without a body, only a soul. Alice sits across the table from him. She is orienting him and asks him a series of questions, his name among other things. Grimm responds, but he barely remembers a thing. After the pleasant conversation, Alice explodes into a fine red mist, leaving nothing but a stain on the carpeted library floor. everything fades to black. Grimm awakens in a cell, in prison. His body, half rotten, is that of an immortal undead corpse. The cell is patrolled by a horrible demon beast, but a young knight defeats it and beckons Grimm to escape. She explains that the world is in turmoil. A fog emanating from the castle of the Lost Empire is turning everyone in these lands into demon beasts. She says her name is Jeanne d'Arc, and she hails from Orléans. She is investigating the fog, but that she will escort him to the lands of the fairies. As they are about to depart Fort Ivern, where Grimm was being held, Jeanne asks Grimm to help her on her quest to rid the world of the evil fog. But as soon as Grimm responds, he appears. Hellkaiser, a terrifying drake, soars down from the skies and spews forward an inferno, engulfing Jeanne in flames. Jeanne screams and pleads in vain as she dies a painful death in front of Grimm. But there's little time for grievances as the mighty drake faces Grimm and prepares its next attack. It is an evenly matched battle. The drake might be enormous and powerful, but that makes him predictable. Managing to outsmart the dragon due to its nature, Grimm wins the battle and avenges Jeanne. Afterwards, Grimm ends up arriving at the land of the fairies where Jeanne had planned to escort him before her death. The Sacred Forest is a safe haven with fairies frolicking about. This place ultimately becomes Grimm's home base, where all of his allies congregate and where everyone rests from their journey. Here, Grimm meets Prayer Master, a small black rabbit. Unknown to Grimm, this Prayer Master is the same person Carroll and Alice once called friend and enjoyed tea parties with. The rabbit explains he will help Grimm on his quest to reach the Lost Empire and stop the fog. By giving him souls Grimm has acquired in battle, Prayer Master would help Grimm become stronger. The Black Rabbit also tells Grimm to seek out a fairy named Leaf that would be of help on his quest. It doesn't take long for Grimm to find the green-haired fairy singing in a nearby meadow. Leaf introduces herself and explains that there is a magical barrier protecting this forest. She tells Grimm that these lands are dangerous and lends him her help by accompanying him on his quest. Before venturing into the forest towards the Lost Empire, Leaf tells Grimm that he is free, maybe to an extreme. She says to feel free to murder anyone he doesn't like, or take any mate by force. She truly means those words. On the way out of the forest, Grimm notices a trail of breadcrumbs and decides to follow them. The breadcrumbs lead to a dilapidated house at the edge of the forest. After exploring the house, he finds a woman hunched over a desk, a witch. Grimm talks to the charming witch and tells her he plans to go to the Lost Empire, only for the witch named Dorothy to warn him that if he continues, he will be captured and he will be made a servant and a toy for demonic princesses. She tells him to do what he wants. She won't stop him. Before leaving, Grimm asks her to be her apprentice, and while Dorothy is a bit hesitant, she agrees. She tells Grimm to hunt down and slay the demon beast, the Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, and Lion. After tracking them down and defeating them, Dorothy agrees to come with Grimm as an ally to his quest. The journey to the Lost Empire leads through a city that has been overrun by the fog. Ladies of the Night, or at least what has become of them, roam the streets, attacking any passerby unlucky enough to get close. At the heart of the city roamed a lone dog. Grimm pets this dog, and the dog becomes attached to Grimm. He awaits his master back at the Sacred Forest, hoping for more headpats. Upon arrival at the entrance of the Lost Empire, a battalion of archers as well as a formidable armored knight stand in Grimm's way. Grimm and his party attack with blade and spell, leaving only the armored knight, whose attacks were accentuated with a meow? A few more attacks and the knight is defeated, only for a pack of cats to jump out of the armor and flee the battle, leaving the empty metal shell on the floor. With the path now clear, Grimm advances towards the castle. The castle entrance is sealed by a magic barrier, the gate unable to open, unyielding. Before the castle entrance, Grimm finds a large stone tablet along with 4 large crystals devoid of light. The tablet reads, "Slay the 4 princesses, or be bound by covenant." Grimm departs to find the princesses. Grimm arrives at a tall, dilapidated tower with a target of climbing to the top. The floors of the tower are full of holes and many of the staircases are collapsed. Many strange creatures inhabit the tower, stranger still than the common demon beasts found throughout the land. It is almost as if the owner of the tower has a liking for unusual beasts. Grimm makes it to the roof of the tower. There sits Rapunzel in her golden throne. She is surrounded by countless gold coins, filling crates and piled in mounds. Grimm speaks to the demonic princess, and she tells Grimm that she is expecting a beast stronger than any other to be delivered to her. While she's waiting impatiently, Rapunzel tells Grimm that in order for her to recognize him as a man worthy of joining in covenant, he should bring her a very rare species of flower, a phantom rose. Grimm attacks Rapunzel. Rapunzel's appearance changes to that of a woman with bug-like features. She looks almost like a cockroach with the long, tentacle-like antennae that sprout from her head. As the battle progresses, she becomes even more monstrous, giving the title of demonic princess credibility. Rapunzel boasts about her beauty and her riches, but no matter the confidence, the princess is slain. Stepping inside the castle in the middle of the snowy field, Grimm notices that it is dead quiet. Unlike the rest of the lands, there are no demon beasts, and all the residents of this place have been frozen in huge blocks of ice. While exploring the castle, Grimm manages to spot a pure white rabbit scurry about. The rabbit darts off into a nearby hole, away from Grimm's view. But that is perhaps a tale for another time. Venturing deeper into the insides of the cold structure, Grimm finally sees signs of life. 7 gnomes are wandering about in a small room with a mirror hung in the back. The gnomes seem to be almost confused when spoken to, so Grimm directs his attention to the 8th person in the room, standing in front of the mirror. Snow White asks the mirror who is the fairest of them all, and laments that there still exist others who are considered more beautiful and therefore are her enemies. Snow White notices Grimm, and when asked, she agrees to enter into a covenant with one condition: kill all other demonic princesses. The task is not unreasonable, as Grimm's quest is already aligned with her wishes. Grimm attacks Snow White. Snow White and the 7 gnomes transform into grotesque creatures. They attack with ice magic, making them the probable culprits for the state of the realm. Full of jealousy and spite, Snow White spits her last words and is slain by Grimm. On the way out of the castle, Grimm finds an invitation to Atlantica, where a demonic princess conveniently resides. Before continuing with his quest to slay demonic princesses, Grimm is gifted a boat by one of the fairies of the forest. This gift, however, turns out to be a prank, as the river is guarded by a giant powerful beast with countless eyes. While the fairy thought this would be a cruel prank, Grimm ends up dispatching the foe handedly and arrives at the cabin at the end of the river. Inside, he finds a girl wearing a scarlet hood, sleeping defenselessly. Grimm wakes her. Her speech is devoid of emotion, and she seems to care more about feeding her wolf, Poro, than whatever Grimm has to say. No matter what Grimm says, she is not interested. Sometime later, Grimm returns, and a fairy tale book he is carrying gets Red Hood's attention. Grimm takes advantage of this opening and asks to buy Red. She tells Grimm an exorbitant amount of souls for this, convinced this would deter him, but Grimm is a seasoned adventurer and has souls to spare. Red agrees to join Grimm and brings her wolf Poro along. She slowly becomes closer, but her outward emotions never seem to show. Grimm stands at the edge of the beach with the invitation he found earlier. Suddenly, the scroll begins to shine and the earth to shake. The sea parts to reveal a giant staircase leading to the bottom of the ocean. As if by magic, Grimm has no issues walking among the fish on the ocean floor. It doesn't take long to find the demonic princess inside of her castle deep in the ocean. The little mermaid is beautiful and graceful. When Grimm talks to her, she proposes to form a covenant, but only if he offers up the life of the woman he treasures the most. At first glance, this seems like a terrible proposition. However, because Leaf is a fairy, she does not die. Her spirit stays in nature and she is reborn. It would be a little consequence to form a covenant with this woman. Grimm attacks the Little Mermaid. The gorgeous princess doesn't immediately attack. She stands there giggling at Grimm, but then her tone completely changes when she dispels her camouflage. Her true form reveals a giant kraken-like monster with tentacles and a big mouth. She keeps threatening to eat Grimm and his party members, but the threats prove to be empty as the princess is slain on the ground. Grimm steps onto the poisonous bog. Corpses and monsters litter the toxic valley, making it a dangerous journey. While searching for the last princess needed to open the gate to the Lost Empire, Grimm notices a suspicious cave. While he doesn't go in to explore, this cave would later turn out to be of great importance. But for now, the focus is on that princess. The Princess Frog sits on her throne in the middle of the poisonous bog. Mountains of skeletons surround her, bodies of past adventurers stripped of their flesh. Grimm approaches her, and she asks him if he is her prince. The Princess Frog does not want Grimm to do any tasks for them to form a covenant. She is willing to do so here and now. It would be the easiest covenant to form of any of the demonic princesses. Grimm attacks the Princess Frog. The frog is accompanied by her frog guards and rides a frog to battle. She is dedicated to sucking out her opponent's life force, and the origin of the many corpses surrounding her becomes apparent. As the battle progresses and the princess takes damage, she is reduced to her true form, a frog. Grimm deals the final blow to this weakened, pathetic creature, and the Princess Frog is slain. Grimm makes his way back to the gate of the Lost Empire. This time, it looks different. The 4 crystals, once devoid of light, now glow in 4 different colors, one for each demonic princess slain. Before entering the gate, Leaf reassures Grimm and tells him that no matter what, she will be by his side. Full of conviction, Grimm enters the hall and makes his way to the throne. Cinderella sits at the throne, her 2 guards at her side. She orders them to attack. While strong, Grimm handles them easily and confronts the last princess. Cinderella explains to Grimm her plans. The fog that spreads throughout the land will steal all living things' souls in an effort to make everyone equal. To defend these ideals, Cinderella attacks Grimm. Cinderella is the strongest princess. She attacks in her beautiful form before transforming into an abomination. A mass of flesh, tentacles, and a vaguely humanoid torso in the middle. However, no matter what form she takes, Grimm is able to overpower her. And so, Cinderella, the final princess, is slain. The throne gathers the fog within itself, and Grimm touches it, finally dispelling the fog from this world. Everything fades to black, and Grimm is back in the sacred forest. The fog is not gone. Grimm asks Leaf and Prayermaster about defeating Cinderella, but they insist that she must be alive because the fog is still here. No matter how many times Grimm touches the throne, he ends up in the same place as before. Grimm is stuck in an endless repeating cycle. He tried everything. Even slaying his closest friends was a possibility that seemed to cross his mind. No matter what he tries, he always ends up back in the sacred forest as if waking from a dream. There is only one path left, the ominous cave and the poisonous bog. Slogging through the cave isn't easy. The strongest demon beasts yet reside within. Demons and dragons and otherworldly creatures can only slow down Grimm. At last, he makes it to the deepest part of the cave, and inside, he finds the Black Trial. The Black Trial is led by Black Judge Baphomet. She is a demon in charge of punishing the sinners of the land. She sees potential in Grimm and asks if he will reap some sinners for her. Grimm agrees, and after a couple of targets were slain, a new job was assigned to Grimm. But little did he know that this job would begin to reveal the true nature of this world. Leonard was a demon that was once slain, but now resurrected. He resides in the Forest of Sabbath, where a war between sinners and the Black Trial is ongoing. Monstrosities fight monstrosities in this senseless war, and just before Grimm reaches the innermost sanctum, he finds Dorothy contemplating. Dorothy explains that this used to be a place where witches congregated. She was a great sorcerer back then and was ordered to hunt witches. Because of Dorothy's ruthlessness, the Sabbath of Witches summoned an archdemon named Leonard to oppose her, the very same demon Grimm is hunting now. The battle between Dorothy and Leonard was one of attrition, and only ended when Dorothy made peace with a witch named Glinda. Hundreds of years have passed since then. She reminisces and wonders what happened to Glinda, not knowing that she would soon know her terrible fate. Grimm steps into the deepest part of the Forest of Sabbath. There are signs that someone had lived here at some point, but before Grimm can investigate, a great demon lurches forward. The beast is known to be Leonard, but for some reason, he has no name, no role. Leonard is indeed an ungodly beast. Giant demon wings sprout from his back. Twisted horns emanate from his skull-like face. Dorothy helps Grimm fight, but she's confused. This is not the Leonard she fought all those years ago. This one is changed, corrupted. She could only imagine what blasphemy could befall an archdemon to deprive him into this terrible form. Leonard is strong, but he was defeated before, and he was defeated this time as well. After the battle, a top member of the Black Trial speaks to Grimm. His name is Linda Mea. He laments he was beaten to the punch on slaying Leonard, and with a little bit of contempt, he vanishes. Now undisturbed, Grimm can investigate his surroundings. He finds a ring on what remains of a body. It belongs to Glinda, her body marking her likely place of death. Nearby, he finds an apprenticeship diary. It belonged to Glinda as well. Most of it is written as an ordinary diary, depicting the everyday life of the witch and Leonard. Ancient tomes and tea parties are mentioned, but the last page is different. Her handwriting shaky, presumably written in haste. Glinda made a mistake. She had summoned something unthinkable in an effort to impress other witches. Leonard was fighting desperately, and with no signs of winning. She writes they were not the demons she knows. They were something different. The sky turned red. The world broke. Her last words written were a call to help to Dorothy. Dorothy reads the diary with sadness, but is left with only questions and little answers about what happened. Glinda did not know when she wrote the diary that an event very similar to this had occurred in the past to our very own Lois Carroll. And just like then, Glinda had inadvertently invited something very similar. The Black Goat of the Woods, 1,000 Young. Unknown to Grimm, the title of Archdemon and the role that Leonard once played were stolen by this new demon, leaving Leonard without a name. And thus, the summoned god took the role of Archdemon Baphomet. Just before leaving, and just for a second, Grimm thinks he sees a little girl with blonde hair with a blue ribbon. It must have just been a trick of the mind. Baphomet has one last mark for Grimm, but this time, the target is someone very close to him. The Black Judge wants Grimm to execute a rabbit named Prayer Master, the very same that guided him and has helped him gather strength throughout his journey. Baphomet doesn't seem to know where he is, and leaves it to Grimm to find him. Unknown to Grimm, Prayer Master has been behind the barrier in the sacred forest because he's hiding. Perhaps he does so because he felt responsible for Marisu's actions due to his jealous wish all those years ago. When Grimm confronts Prayer Master, the rabbit is more incredulous than anything else. He thinks Grimm is foolish and warns him that if he dies, Grimm will no longer be able to gather strength. Seeing Grimm so full of conviction and not likely to reconsider, Prayer Master attacks. The black rabbit's form changes to that of a winged dragon engulfed in purple flames. Red wonders whose prayers had the Prayer Master heeded before, perhaps alluding to hearing Carroll's plea that Christmas night so long ago. After a difficult battle, the traitorous rabbit is fallen. He coughs up a few words with his last breaths. He is perplexed with how strong Grimm has become and wonders if that strength is enough to confront Mary Sue. Grimm returns to Baphomet and she praises him very highly. She's surprised to hear that Prayer Master was in the hidden forest and insists on giving Grimm a reward, a covenant with her. After they are done, she mentions she has one last small request from Grimm. When asked, she says that because of her position, many people target her and she would like to go somewhere safer. She asks Grimm if she can take hiding in the sacred forest. Grimm agrees, but he did not realize what her true intentions were. When Grimm returns to the sacred forest, he finds a massacre. Bloodstains blemished land. The inhabitants of the forest are nowhere to be seen. The land is changed, rivers diverted, and only a staircase leading to the lower path remains. Following the path leads to a pitch-black room. In the middle is Leaf. As she sees Grimm, she cries for help. Before her is Baphomet. She is glad to see Grimm. Baphomet begins to speak to Leaf in cryptic phrases that Grimm doesn't understand, at least not now. Baphomet asks Grimm to step away from Leaf, for she is the one that staged this worthless play. Leaf, unbeknownst only to Grimm, plays a fool and pretends not to know what Baphomet is talking about. Baphomet continues the talk that Grimm cannot understand. She wants this farce to end. She does not want to be a doll in Leaf's world. Baphomet asks Leaf to open the gate to this world. She knows Leaf is worried about someone entering, but asserts it is inevitable. Baphomet wants Leaf to open the gate so she can be reunited with her beloved. Seeing that Leaf is unyielding, Baphomet attacks Grimm and Leaf. Baphomet assumes her true form, that of an outer god, the same type of being that Carroll had once beheld. Her form is almost beyond comprehension. It has mouths and bosoms randomly sprouting from a big lump of stretching flesh. She has the power of an outer god. She spews a miasma of death. The battle is tough. However, with the help of his allies, Grimm deals a lethal blow to the eldritch abomination. Baphomet exchanges her final words with Leaf through coughs and spurts. Leaf mocks her, an outer god, for embracing human emotions too much. Baphomet pleads with Leaf to let her go, to let her reunite with her beloved. She begs her to forgive her because of their kinship. She is Leaf's mother. Leaf denies her as her mother before crushing her into a bloody stain. Leaf turns back to Grimm. No, not Grimm. She looks beyond Grimm, to his allies, and does the same to them as she did to Baphomet, leaving nothing but red stains standing out in the darkened room. Leaf speaks in cryptic lines as before, and tells Grimm that they are finally alone, and that together they would create the most beautiful stories for all eternity. But Leaf would come to regret being cruel to her mother, as Baphomet's prayers were answered. The gate that Leaf so fervently fought to protect had opened thanks to Baphomet's wish, and someone had gotten in. Clap, clap, clap. Alice emerges from the shadows. She congratulates Leaf, no, Mary Sue, for her amusing performance, but claims that Grimm is her lover, not Mary Sue's. Leaf is perplexed. She cannot understand why the crawling one is here, inside the world that she created, that she sealed off. Leaf cannot accept it and begins to break down. Alice turns to Grimm with a giggle. She is happy to be able to see him once again, like all those years ago. This ending is the one that directly continues in Black Souls 2. After this, Leaf is stripped of her powers and all of her creations are disassembled and tinkered with. All of her creations, including Grimm. But this tale is one for next time.